Hey guys, welcome back to J. Lou and Bree. My name is J. Lou.
And I'm Bree.
And in today's video, what we're going to talk about is the reason why we believe Joe Budden will never ever get canceled despite all of the stuff that's going on in the past and still kind of was floating around there, right? So that being said, the reason why I wanted to make this video is because the other day we were in the car and I was sitting back and I was just like, with all of the stuff with Mal and Rory and all of that, it got to a point. I used to be one of those people where I was like, I'm not gonna listen to the show unless they're on there. But then it got to the point to where it's just like, of course, now at this point they're not coming back, and I was just like, there's nothing else for me to listen to, right? So it made me start thinking about this, and it brought up the topic. So
yeah, so the way it kind of surfaced was we both agreed, like we kind of had this understanding. All right, we're done. Yeah. We gotta find something else. So I put him on to another podcast. You know, I knew it wasn't really his thing, but we tried. Then we were going to work out, and his car automatically starts playing whatever he was just listening to. And I was like, Joe Budden Podcast, you're back?
Oh yeah, that's how it started.
Yes. And I was like, I can't believe he's back. And then I started thinking, you know what? I don't feel guilty listening to him either.
And the thing about his show is not, I don't listen to the Joe Budden Podcast for him. Like a lot of people particularly listen to it for him. I listen because of the consistency as well as the fact that typically Rory and Mal would always offer different perspectives to challenge him. But the perspective that Ice and Ish provide, that's one reason why I listen to it, because they don't just let him just go off on his things. I feel like they challenge him a little bit more and they don't really hold back versus the industry ties that Mal and Rory probably felt that, they couldn't speak up on certain things. So I like that aspect about the show now, and that's one reason why I started listening to it, because we have a thing where we will listen to podcasts or watch TV shows together, and it's a cardinal sin if you start doing it without the other person.
Right. And then, and like to J. Lou's point, like when he said Ice and Ish offer something different, like the dynamic has changed, because before Rory and Mal did their revealing what happened to them, their podcast together, I had never truly heard Mal give an opinion about anything in a long time. Yeah. So that was new for me. Like usually he sits back and just whatever, but he spoke about why he does that. But because of that, I didn't necessarily have to have him on the podcast because he was just sitting there listening. So I do like the dynamic with Ice and Ish.
So whenever I was listening to it, originally Mal was that dude. He would offer a whole bunch of insight and things of that nature, and he was very vocal. But then whenever he explained the reason why he kind of stopped being so vocal because of the things that was going on behind the scenes, it's like, I want to say Ice is now, he's like filling that role that Mal used to fill when I listened to the original podcast, right? And it's just like, the other day they were talking about Lil Nas X or whatever the case is, and it just reminded me, like, Mal's that kind of dude where he's like, I want to hear about this and this, like street culture stuff. And Ice was basically saying he would like Lil Nas X more if he was beefing with people or talking about his haters or something like that, right? And it just, to me, that was the aspect of the podcast that I enjoyed about Mal and Rory being on there. But the reason why I personally feel like Joe won't get canceled is because he won't stop doing it. Like he stated in his video, he's like, this is something that's gonna keep going on, and it's not just about him, it's about all the other people that's on the episode. And when I don't have anything to do, I want something, if I want to listen to something that is just gonna be like, okay, this is what's going on in the culture or whatever it is. The Joe Budden Podcast for me was something that I could always gravitate towards, right?
Exactly. It's entertaining. And I mean, we have other podcasts that we listen to that might be for development and stuff like that. Like I like E.T., the Hip Hop Preacher, and just speaking on the point of
what's the name of the podcast?
It's called Secrets to Success.
Yeah.
So I love that podcast. It gives me pumped, but sometimes I just want to hear something that's entertaining. Yeah. I want to hear about what's going on. Right. And I love music. We both do. And so Joe Budden and his show, they do a good job of discussing music culture.
Yeah. Even though it was funny, he I think it was the most recent episode where he was talking about, I think it's The Gig is the Gig. He was like, oh yeah, we're no longer a music podcast, and I'm glad we don't have to talk about this stuff anymore. But then he goes on to continue to talk about music the whole episode. You know, it's just like that contradiction in itself is, and I think that's the entertaining aspect for me is that I'm like, I listen to see, okay, how many times is this dude gonna contradict himself?
Yeah, and I enjoy, it's entertaining. Because he's being himself. You know, I listen to the podcast for that reason as well. And then the other reason I believe he won't get canceled is because he is an amazing interviewer. I know, like, the Joe Budden Podcast is cool, but those pull-up episodes, y'all, they're on another level. Like, when he had the one with, my favorites are the one with Lil Baby and Omarion. Very random, I know, but I love those because we saw, like, he really knows how to ask certain questions to get more out of people. Yeah. And the one with Corday, like, all three of those were incredible. So I want to hear more of that from him too. And again, like J. Lou said, it's not just about Joe, it's about the information as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And to Bree's point, like, the one thing that I forgot that she just brought up is he supposedly he hates interviewing rappers or musicians or whatever the case is. It's like all of the things that he tries to stay away from is really what makes him successful, right? And if he embraced it, I feel like if he embraced it a little bit more, then he wouldn't have this conflict internally that he's kind of going through right now, right? And I think that's ultimately what led to the Mal and Rory situation is he's conflicted with himself.
Yeah.
But I think he had ended up calling, what was the Lloyd Banks on a recent episode that we listened to, and it was just like he was like, oh man, this would be a perfect opportunity for me to come back and rap. And because he's telling himself he no longer raps, it's like he's limiting himself and who he is. And personally, the interviews that he does, because his mindset is he's been in the industry, he's seeing it from the business end as well as from the creative end. He can ask questions that a lot of interviewers won't be able to ask, right? Like somebody like academics is very great at asking questions about the business aspect and the behind the scenes, but he's never been an artist, right? Joe actually has he can walk in both of those realms, and whether if he's asking the questions or not, like when it comes to the shows, they prep and do questions before the shows and things of the nature to make sure that Joe may not ask a question. He may get like Ice or Ish to ask a certain question or whatever the case is. And you can see that really in the Kevin Samuels interview that they did.
I was just about to bring that up next.
Because like Joe, you can see if you watch that interview again, Joe really didn't talk that much, but you can see Ish kept constantly bringing up several questions. I think he was the main person that was kind of challenging and doing the interview process. And that's what I like about the Joe Budden podcast is being able to ask the questions and not being afraid of the pushback. You're gonna get pushback no matter what. Like I've experienced it. I can speak on that from several different levels, but pushback typically is a sign that you're challenging the norm and you can't grow if you're always going in the flow of where everything else is already growing. Sometimes you have to take a different approach in order to get people to at least think, okay, is this right or is this wrong?
Agreed. And I don't want to glaze over the Kevin Samuels interview either, because even doing an interview with him probably caused a lot of pushback as well. He said that in the interview, like there were women who were like, I can't believe you're going to talk to Kevin Samuels. But it was important because that was a great platform to have Kevin Samuels on, so somebody could ask him the necessary questions that needed to be asked when it comes to men and black men in our society and the things that they deal with and why they are the way they are. So I really enjoyed that, and I felt like what better podcast for him to be on than Joe Budden's. And so to your point about the questions, they're good at that because it's a conversation. A lot of times when you hear like interviews and things like that, sometimes there's no conversation flow. A conversation, you ask questions, you allow people to answer, you go back and forth. But that doesn't happen nowadays sometimes. People just talk all the way through. Joe would probably do that if he didn't have, the dynamic that he has on the show. But
Yeah.
But yeah.
But those are our few reasons why we feel like the Joe Budden Podcast won't get canceled, despite what everybody's saying. We live in America. America has this fantasy of tearing people down, and then when that person builds themselves up out of the ground or whatever the case is, then they fall in love with that person only to try to tear that person down, and it's a repetitive cycle.
Yeah.
We've seen it with so many different things. It's like, I like boxing, right? And when you look at the story of Floyd Mayweather, his whole entire career, they tried to destroy this man. But every time he won, then they glorified him for a little bit, then they tried to destroy him. And it's just like, he's at the point now to where he's the best ever, right? But the thing is, people are still looking for reasons to try to say, oh, well, he's doing this and that. That's just America, you know?
Right.
And I think Joe's at that point to where he is understanding that, okay, this is what I have to go through. But I personally feel like if he got over the internal struggles of trying to appease every single person, because I can see that's the one thing I feel like that's really holding him back. He's trying to make sure he doesn't offend these people, make sure he doesn't offend these people. When the reality is, like I always state, 80% of people are always going to be on the fence, and you're going to have to probably persuade those people.
Right.
10% of people are going to love you no matter what. 10% of people are going to hate you no matter what, right? So it's like he's worried about the 10% that's going to hate him no matter what, and he's ignoring the 10% that's going to love him no matter what. And the 80, they're gonna come and go, you know. So, but that's my personal thoughts. Did you have anything else that you want to add to it?
I think, and the last thing I'd like to say is some of the issues that he's going through, he definitely caused himself.
Yeah.
But to J. Lou's point, consistency still matters. People, that 80%, they're gonna go either way all the time. People are very emotional, so if you keep putting out things, eventually they'll be like, oh, he was canceled, but I'm back. You know, it happens with a lot of people. So I don't even, and then a lot of times we get partial stories, you know, from people, and then we run with it. So I commend him for continuing to do the job. I don't necessarily agree with every single thing he says. And personally, like when it comes to the discussions that he has about women, I would never listen to anything that he has to say about women and take it seriously. Nothing at all.
It's crazy that we have to say that, because I know we live in that culture, that climate, to where if we don't address that, people are probably going to be in the comments, and it's like, I can't believe you guys will support a man that would treat a woman like this, and this. And this video is not about what he does in his personal life. This video is not about who he is as an individual. This video is about the reason why the podcast, and he will never be canceled, because he's going to continue working, even if he's not the main person in front of it. He's going to continue working and continue giving people something to listen to in a time where, like when COVID really started taking off, people were at home and didn't have anything to keep them busy, and it's like that's when podcasts really just took off. I believe that they have enough people supporting them to where they will continue just to put out content and things of that nature, you know, unless somebody else comes onto the scene and is more consistent and provides more of an entertainment value and provides more like intellectual benefits that people are looking for, you know. But I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon, just because of Joe's unique career path. Right, agreed.
And the other thing about the consistency thing, I was gonna mention earlier, E.T. talks about that all the time. One of the reasons why he's one of the number one motivational speaker in the world isn't because he's the best at it, it's because he's consistent. They have literally been putting out podcast episodes every week for the last 3 or 4 years. Most people, after 6 months or so, what happened to the show, you know? So, and same thing with Joe Budden. He hasn't stopped, so.
I actually took that tip from E.T., but that's another story. What we're going to do is we're going to be a lot more consistent with these videos, and hopefully you guys tune in and check in regards to the topics that we have. If you guys have any comments or questions or want us to speak on anything in the future, make sure you drop it down in the comment section below. We'll definitely consider it, and you may see it in a future video, and we'll even put your comment in the video and everything as well. But make sure you like this video, share this video if you enjoyed it and you want other people to hear from our perspectives. And it's your boy J. Lou.
And your girl Bree.
And we hope you have a great day. Talk to you guys later.
Salute.